Hey, what's up, everybody? This video is going to be a little different from my past videos. As you guys may not know, or you may know, I'm a tropical Vedic astrologer. I also practice radiesthesia. I've been practicing the sacred art of radiesthesia since 2013, and I've been a devoted student to the topic or the subject of tropical Vedic astrology since 2015, and exclusively under Corey Dowd to Ayurveda University since 2021. So for the last 3 years, I've been under Corey Dowd. Now, let me explain this real quick. This video, I'm going to give her 7 steps that are related to a person who would come to me, whether they're a client, a loved one, or a friend, and they're about to buy a property, right? Because the question that came to me was, how could a person with my skill set help a client if they're about to purchase a property? And so here's the 7 steps that I would take minimum. There'll be more, but these are the 7 steps that I would take to help a client if they're about to purchase a property. The number one thing I would ask them is if they're going to stay in the same city or if they're going to take a journey. Finding this out is vital because certain cities that you move to, new areas, depending upon their coordinates, they could provide a completely different energy available to you. They can offer you things that the area that you grew up or the area that you're currently in may not offer you, right? And so if that's the case, I need to make the person aware of that, right? And if there are red flags, I need to make the person aware of that. It's kind of similar in sports when you see an athlete in one city and they're performing well, then they get traded or they take a new contract and then they're not performing well, or vice versa. Say they're not performing well and then they get to a new city and then they start performing well. That's something that relocation astrology can help you see, so you're not experimenting, you find out after the fact. Second thing I would do is I would check to see what cycle they were in. In astrology, there are several cycles, and the cycle that is very important for me to check is with this system called Vimshottari Dasha. Vimshottari Dasha. This particular system has 9 cycles, and within it is one called Ketu Mahadasha, the most important one, Ketu Mahadasha. Reason being is because I'm going to check to see if they're upcoming this one, because this one is the time period that God puts in a person's life when he wants to make them extremely spiritual, or he wants to grow their spiritual perspective. This is very good for like priests, prophets, seers, people who are taking up heavy ranks or higher ranks of authority in the church or in spiritual practices. The person, Shriners even, whatever your religious or belief system, the background of that is, whatever the higher ranks in that particular paradigm, that will be the place where God is usually sending these people. It's like a period of ascension is what I call it. And it takes 7 years. And during this period of ascension, Ketu Mahadasha, people through history and through research, the astrologers have found, they lose all of their valuables, or at least most of them. So this is a time period where you lose your job, you lose your bank account, your money. You either lose it by giving it away, or you lose it because God is forcefully breaking your relationship with the material world. And this is very common. So when I see that, I'm like, oh man, God really sent this person to me to help them prepare for this spiritual journey, not about the house. The house is not what's important, because they're going to lose a house if they buy it. This is really for me to protect them on this spiritual journey whenever I see that. So that would be the next step I check to make sure they're not going through what's called a Ketu Mahadasha. People have lost so much during this period. Some of them, or enough of them at least, have said they've had barely enough money to even get by for food and paying cell phone and rent and all these things. And that's even after being very high up in society. So I would definitely check that. If I see that's going to be something that they start within the next few years, I would definitely recommend that they don't purchase a property. The very next thing I would do is be more redundant with this Varshaphalla technique, where instead of, going out so far in the future, you're looking at a yearly cycle, an annual cycle. And I would do this because I want to make sure that the year that they're buying the property, they're not starting it on a year of losses, right? That's it. An upcoming year can either be gaining 50-50, like you break even, or a year of losses. And losses can come from the energy, health, or finances, really. And you don't want to lose any of those things. So if you're coming up on a year of losses, I'm going to always encourage you to wait a year or wait until the loss season or the season of losing things when that's over. Excuse me if my words are all over the place, but I'm trying to not make the video so long. So bear with me if I'm fumbling on my words a bit. The fourth step that I would take would be this method called Kakinis. Now, with Kakinis, it's all about a vibration of sounds. For some of you, I've heard some of my friends use the sound scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. Well, that do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, there are 7 sounds, right? And those sounds are basically produced by the 7 planets. They're all coordinated with each planet. Do with the sun, re with the moon, sun, moon, all the way through Saturn. So 7 planets, 7 sounds. In this particular Kakini system, what I would do is, this system is used to see if the person, if their name and the city that they're moving to, if they're compatible or not, right? And the way that it shows compatibility is going to be by time and money. So the city is either going to give you time and more money, like you move to the city and all of a sudden you get a raise or you earn more money or you get more time off, right? Or it takes time and money from you, right? Or the third, I should say, the third option, you break even. Like, so for me, my name is Elias, right? I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. And me being in Atlanta, Georgia, Atlanta is a solar sound based upon the Kakini method, right? It's ruled by the sun because the very first sound in Atlanta is a vowel. Vowels are ruled by the sun. So this is a solar sound, right? My name starts with a vowel, also a solar sound ruled by the sun. So when you compare these two together, we break even. So Atlanta is not giving me more time and not giving me more money, but at least it's not taking it from me either. So I break even with that town. It's just the way that the system works. And I've lived in 19 different cities, and I found that with this particular system, it works on like an 85% accuracy. So I would definitely use this technique if a person's about to buy a home. I would definitely see if the city that they're living in, if that particular home that's inside that city, if it resonates with their birth name. Fifth thing I would check is the numerology on the address itself, right? So say the address combined, so the address is 135 or something like that. So 135. I wouldn't want that house. I wouldn't want that house because 1 and 3 is 4, right? And then 4 and 5 is 9. The one home that I would never suggest a person buy or even rent is a home where the numerology on the address itself adds up or reduces to a 9. You don't want a home that's for 9, and that's why I use numerology to make sure they're not buying a number 9. You can look at your listing sites and for rentals or for homes to buy, and you'll notice that homes that have that address of number 9 are always the ones that's either cheapest or mostly available, or more commonly available, I should say. So that technique is flawless for that. I would avoid number 9s. Number 9 homes, that energy is good for the type of people that are starting like halfway homes, foster homes, shelters, animal shelters. Say you're taking care of a lot of animals or something. That's good for that, but it's not good if you don't want to attract people that's going to be freeloaders, if that makes sense, because it's a refuge type of energy. There are also things to consider. So like if you're an antisocial person, there are homes that I wouldn't recommend for you. But I would definitely check the numerology. 5th. 6th is I would check the actual location to make sure there's no of those electronic power stations nearby. You'll also notice that homes that are close to those electronic frequencies or those places that have the electronic power stations, those homes tend to be cheaper, and they cause those power stations create ELF and EMF, right? And not to go too heavy, but those rays have what's called, in radiesthesia we call it, a vertical negative green ray, and it penetrates through concrete walls, through everything, causes heart problems, eye problems, reproduction problems, cancers, you name it. And so if a person's dead set on buying a home that's near one of those electronic power stations, I would always encourage them to purchase a couple of crystals, and I can advise them on the right crystals to protect them from those ELF, EMF, and any of those Hartman grids or negative rays that are coming from the earth due to telluric energy. Again, don't worry about the words if you don't know what they mean. Just know that my heart always has your back. I wouldn't want your you or your family's health being compromised by those rays without protecting you. The very last thing that I would say and advice that I would give a person I would do is this technique with jaimini astrology. And not the last, I would say, but for this video, I would say it's going to be the last because we're already at the 10-minute mark. In jaimini, this astrologer found that a person's home isn't just a dwelling. It's a reflection of your emotional being or your emotional needs. So for example, if any of you guys know a person that's an empath or they're very sensitive and intuitive, they can pick up on things, and say that they don't separate from people easily. They end up crying and breaking away tearfully and stuff. Well, just know, just right off the bat, the real sensitive people, they're always going to do best if they live in a home that's very large. So if they live in New York City, for instance, and the average home is, say, 600 square feet, the homes are really small in New York, then they would need one that's 1,000 square feet, and that would be considered a very large home for them, right? So that would be a technique that I would use just for the emotional status. So those 7 things will be things that me as a Vedic astrologer, a tropical Vedic astrologer, and also a radio stages, those would be techniques that I would use to help a friend or a loved one buy a property. And, I even have more up my sleeve than that, because depending upon where they are in the process, say they're about to buy the contract, there are techniques I would use using the system of Tajika for that one. And, muhurtas to pick the right day for God's blessing to buy a home. Those would be 2 more techniques I would add. But that's just something that I want to share with y'all. I had to drop a heavy dose, remind y'all who y'all fucking with. I have a lot to offer y'all, man. I got your back, though. So stay tuned.